Ralph, I don't know if I made any sense whatsoever because, as I say, when we got to talking to Sandy, I'm her biggest fan, and I had so many ideas banging around in my head about what to talk to her about. I seemed like I couldn't articulate one thing well.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that at the very beginning. You are a fan for sure, but how much fun she is. And
Yeah.
the topics we got to talk about, so incredibly needed and necessary in our world and our industry today. I really, really enjoyed it. I learned a bunch. I may be part of the problem as one of the.
So, folks, he listens to others and somehow doesn't listen to me. This is the story of my life.
It's not true.
But no, seriously, we're talking to Sandy Avina. She is with California Schools JPA, and she's also known as the Risk Influencer. So grab a drink. Let's go talk to Sandy. It's going to be fun.
It is.
Let's welcome Sandy Avina. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Yvonne and Rafael. So good to see you.
So I think I've told you, but I'm going to say it out loud so everybody can hear. I am your biggest fan.
Well, thank you. Insurance isn't the topic that most people think of when they think of social media, and I'm really trying to convince my kids that I'm cool. So if you can put that in writing, I will take it.
I do the same. I do the same with my girls. Okay, Mom, really? But no, seriously, you have taken, so we started this podcast. This is our 6th season. So this is our 6th year. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? We're going to be doing a podcast about, workers' compensation. But you, my dear, have taken it to like a whole different level with your awesome videos. So for those that haven't seen Sandy's videos, you have to go to LinkedIn right now or YouTube. They're on YouTube as well, right?
On YouTube, yes. And TikTok.
And probably TikTok, yeah. So look for Sandy Avina and you will be obsessed like I am. Because she takes these they're important. Don't get me wrong. These are important things that we talk about. But she adds this layer of humor and creativity. And you just do such a great job of breaking down these topics that are otherwise, like if we were to explain them in normal terms, it would just be boring. But I love what you do.
Thank you. I have a lot of fun doing it. So I love that. I've actually got to meet a lot of people that way. It's how I met you, Yvonne.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
The beauty of social media is you get to connect with all these people. So it's been a great avenue for that to really get to meet more folks in the industry.
That's right. And I did it, even though we talked about it, I did it anyway. Let's take a moment for you to introduce yourself, your role in the system, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about our topic today.
Sure. So I am currently a claim services manager with California Schools JPA. We are a self-insured public risk pool. We service K through 12 school districts and community colleges and regional occupational programs, mostly in San Bernardino County, which I tell everybody, my fun fact is it is the largest county geographically in the US. We are a massive, massive county. It's probably, with no traffic, it's a good 4-hour drive from one end of the county to the other. If you went from like Chino Hills to like...
I had no idea.
Yeah. So our furthest school district we service is in Needles, California. So we have a lot of remote areas, but I'm really lucky to kind of work with all the districts. Every district has different challenges regionally because it's such a big county. So we have folks who are like up in the mountains, and we got folks who are way out in the desert where it's very remote and access to care is really a challenge. And then you layer workers comp on top of that, and it's really tough. So I do like that it is, even though it's mostly education, it is so different from district to district because they have all those different challenges.
Wow. And I think we've had one other JPA on. It's been a while. It's been a few seasons, but take a moment just to explain what that is. What does a JPA do, and how is that different than other forms of entities in our space?
So a JPA is just a fancy term for a risk pool. It's joint powers authority. But in California, we like to be special and we say, we're not going to call it a risk pool. We're going to say joint powers authority. But it's just a group of public entities who get together and say, hey, insurance is really expensive and I'm having a hard time doing this by myself. Let's all get together and do it as a group. And that way we purchase insurance and we're able to self-insure at certain layers, and it makes it more affordable. And when you're a public entity, the affordability is really, really important, because sometimes your funding comes from the state, sometimes it comes from federal government. and those things can be cut sometimes. So you want to make sure that you create pricing stability. And that really is the beauty of JPAs. Those risk pools create that stability for their members.
Thank you for explaining that. Really good. So I am so excited to talk about our topic, or you chose the topic actually, and I just can't wait to dive in. So Sandy, you say that you think that our industry has an image problem. Could you please explain what you mean by that?
Where do I start? Okay, so workers' comp is a subset of the insurance industry, right? And let me go back and just say the insurance industry is, I'm going to argue and say, thousands and thousands of years old. As long as commerce has existed, insurance has existed. So this is not a new thing. And workers' comp, at least in the US, the way we know it, is at least 100 years old. And yet when you ask most lay people, they don't know much about comp. They don't know much about insurance, because we, the folks who are doing the hard work in the industry, we talk amongst ourselves. We tell each other what's happening in the industry. We don't talk outside of the industry. And the folks who are, there's a handful of people who do. Deconstructing Comp is a great example of trying to reach everyone, right? Anyone, it's accessible to anyone. If somebody wants to learn about workers' comp, they can listen to the podcast. Outside of things like that, there's not a lot of availability for people to understand what work comp is. So because we have not been telling our story, other people are telling our story. The plaintiff's bar and applicants' attorneys, they are out there. They have social media channels. They are speaking to employees. They have their own podcasts. And they're telling the story for us. And then we wonder why our litigation rates are high. We wonder why employees have these assumptions about what work comp should offer, because we're not talking to the people we should be talking to. We're talking to ourselves internally. And that's not who needs the conversation. We need to get the conversation to the people who are impacted, and that's the workforce. And there's so much opportunity to do better there. And it's a little embarrassing, I think, for our industry that we have existed for so long and have done such a poor job doing that.
Yeah, first of all, I have two questions. So let me just take a second. Rafael, how many times have you heard me say, why do we have to make things so stinking complicated? How many times have you heard me say that?
Oh my God, multiples, sometimes daily, for years.
So number one, we tend to complicate things just a tad in this industry. The other thing I'm going to say is, and Ralph's probably going to chuckle because I think I've brought this up, almost every podcast in the last few weeks. So our friend Karen Siebert, I think you know Karen. I don't remember how long ago I heard her say this, but it's been in the last 5 years, I think since COVID. And we were in a presentation together. We were on a panel together. And I heard her say this, while we're on the panel. And I literally leaned over and I'm like, that is such a great thing to say. And so she said, and I'm probably not going to get it right, but if we were to teach folks about insurance when they were in school, like, everybody's had like a personal finance class of some kind, right? But I don't recall ever hearing about insurance much. She says, if we were to teach kids about insurance and help them to understand that by the time they become an adult earning a wage, that on average in your adult life, you are going to pay an average of 40 cents for every dollar that you earn in some form of insurance, then maybe they would pay more attention. And I couldn't agree more. Don't you agree? Like if everybody had the understanding that, okay, I'm going to go out there and start earning money, and of the money that I get, for every dollar that I earn, 40 cents of that dollar is going to go to some sort of insurance. Don't you think people would then have an interest in learning about that insurance? Maybe, maybe not. I guess you could argue it both ways. But the way I understand it is most people don't think about insurance until they need it.
Yeah.
And usually by that time, it's too late.
I think that's the big disconnect, right? I think it's two things. One is you're absolutely right. We don't teach about insurance the way we should, especially like when people are young. You need to tell everybody you're going to be an insurance consumer, whether you like it or not, throughout your life. Even if you're not working, you're going to be an insurance consumer because you're going to be on maybe Medicaid or Medicare. And that's also insured. It's just funded at government level, right? So it impacts you no matter what. And we don't teach young people how that works. The other piece is insurance generally, and then we're kind of getting into like personal lines because most of us have like home and auto and things like that. insurance is marketed as a commodity, and it's not a commodity. It is marketed as, hey, we know you don't want to buy this thing, but we have this thing for cheap. So if you got to buy it, come with us because we're cheap. And so people think, okay, well, let me just buy this thing because it's cheap. But nobody tells you what you're actually buying or what it means or what your responsibilities are as a policyholder. And that's at the individual level, but it's also at the business level as well. You'll see businesses who are like, oh, my work comp rates went up. Let me go to a different carrier next year and see if I could get it cheaper. And nobody tells you, okay, well, wait, why did it go up? And let's talk about that instead of just jumping to another carrier to see if that fixes the problem. But insurance is not marketed that way. It's not marketed as a contractual agreement. It's not marketed as you're essentially buying a promise. You're buying a promise of, hey, I can't afford all this risk on my own. I need you to take some of this for me. But in exchange, I have to make sure I minimize that risk. Like that's essentially what's being bought and sold. But instead, they kind of sell it as you have to buy it. It's a compliance issue. Insurance is mandatory in a lot of respects. So what can I do to get the cheapest rate possible? And that is not how you should be buying insurance.
I agree. So I'm going to ask one more question, let Rafael get in here for some fun. But I want to kind of go back to what prompted you to start making these fun videos that you've been doing for a few years now? What got you thinking that that was something you wanted to do?
I have always been like a fairly silly goose. And I was always told throughout my career, like, oh, you're really good at breaking these things down, explaining things. I always try to remember what it's like to be new at something. And I think that's something that we forget because this is the world of insurance, especially workers' comp, is a very technical field. And there's this theory called the curse of knowledge. I don't know if you've heard of the curse of knowledge, but the curse of knowledge works like this. The more expertise you gain in something, the harder it is for you to empathize with people who are new to it and understand what it really is like to start at zero and learn about something. So you're still speaking at that expertise level and you think you're breaking it down, but you're not breaking it down at the level that you should be. And so I try to keep a component of that with everything that I do. And because I work with public entities, and in public entities, the folks who are there responsible for risk management don't always have an insurance background. And so they're trying to wrap their arms around this. And what I've learned to do is how can I meet them where they are and make it comfortable for them to ask questions and have a little bit of fun with education so that insurance doesn't feel so intimidating. And that was kind of the birth of when I started to make these videos. They were just a video component of the way I was explaining insurance all of this time to the people I work with, to try to help them understand. Because insurance in general, because it's not really taught to us, it feels very intimidating as a subject. And most people who are new, when they're learning, they get very frustrated and think, well, this stuff just isn't for me. Like I can't understand it. I'm struggling with it. And then they're not encouraged to learn more because they don't feel comfortable asking questions, because they feel like it's too technical. And I just think that's the curse of knowledge component. We're not doing a good job breaking it down to the level that is accessible for them and makes the topic approachable. So that was really the genesis for those videos. As everybody loves to laugh, we have to have a little fun. As an industry, we also take ourselves very, very seriously sometimes. And it's not that we're not a serious industry, but if you want to reach other people, you have to meet them where they are. And so that was the goal of the videos, is to try to get people to have fun, but also create an environment where they were comfortable then asking questions, because that's how we start learning.
I love it. And well, I'm going to let Rafael get in here, but you take some really interesting topics and break them down using trending music and different things that are happening. So I love that you're able to do that. But let me let Rafael get in here and ask you a couple questions, and then I'll come back a little bit later.
Sandy, give us, I want to hear a little bit about what you do, right, on a day-to-day basis, as your full-time job, right? Because I know we're going to get into more fun on the videos and the way that you are leading us in making, right, communicating all of this a little better, way more fun, really breaking it down, understandable. But I think before I go there, because that's going to be I want to hear a little bit about what you do every single day, right, for the schools. What's your role? How are you, engaged in? What's your day like every day out there?
Oh wow, what is the day? It's every day is an adventure, which I love. I think that's the beauty of this industry. But I oversee a team that is responsible for all of the claims administration for our self-insured program. So we provide property liability and workers' comp insurance to our member districts. Those are all self-insured programs. We have some fully insured programs as well. But we manage the TPA relationships. So I have a team of work comp managers and a property liability manager who works with our TPAs and basically helps by being a liaison between the district and the TPA. Because again, the districts are focusing on educated kids. A lot of them don't have an insurance background. They don't have time to really learn all this stuff and to get into the nitty gritty. But I have folks who are amazing who are able to speak on behalf of the district to make sure that the employer is represented, make sure they're translating that information back to the district of what's happening on the litigation and how all of this works. So they're there to smooth that process over because school districts are, every year, we have new legislation that says, you know what schools should do? They should do these extra things. This is a good idea, which is great, but they're not given any funding or staff to do these extra things. So
Right.
every year we have districts who have to do more with less. Every single year gets harder. So my team is basically in charge of the claims piece of making sure that they are smoothing that process over so the districts don't have to worry about that. They're helping navigate that. Our JPA also has a whole safety and loss control department that handles that piece of it. So what can we do to reduce losses? So my day-to-day is really the claims administration and just overseeing that, but also working with the district and challenges that come up and how we can prevent claims or something unusual happen as a claim and what can we do to help prepare our districts and promote safety and loss control measures. There are new things that come up all the time because you're dealing with kids. And what we had, I think like a year ago, we had an issue with kids putting pencils into laptops because it would create smoke. And so they were damaging. So that became an issue. About like 3 or 4 years ago, there was a TikTok trend where kids would go into the bathroom and like destroy the bathroom, like vandalize it and record it. So you have different types of things that become a trending issue in education because things are changing all the time and social media is a component of that as well. But that just means that my day-to-day is based on what's happening at the district right now. What are they seeing? And it usually isn't just like one district. It starts with one, and all of them tend to see similar challenges. And what can we do to help protect them and make sure that they have the resources they need to protect their students and their staff?
Sandy, are you working within that? When you say claims administration, are you working with adjusters and claim handlers as they welcome in new claims, whether it be property, comp, all the different lines that you've spoken about? I mean, are you integrated into that, or there's some distance between your team and those folks handling the actual claims?
We provide the oversight. So we work with 3 different TPAs, and our team is really in charge of the oversight for those TPAs. We have certain claims handling protocols that we put in place. We have communication standards for our employees, for the injured workers that we put in place. So we're making sure that those TPAs are following those protocols. Because ultimately, we want a good claims outcome. We want our employees back to work. We want them to have the best recovery. We need folks in the classroom. So whatever we can do to make sure that they have a good recovery, that they're better and they're able to serve our students, we're making sure that we're hitting those marks. So that's what our team is doing mainly, is the oversight for the TPAs.
Love that. Thank you so much. We have, younger folks that are listening to the podcast that are trying to figure out, how do they get into workers' comp? It's my skill set, at all usable in the workers' comp space. And I love that you're talking about this because it gives everybody out there yet another aspect, angle, component, right? Public entities are different and their needs are different and the way they manage claims are different. So yet another layer of this very complicated, world that we live in, but a nice view, right? How it differs from, a private employer with an insurance policy, and that's the end of that, right? So it's really interesting. I love that we're bringing this forward for folks to engage with and think through to a great degree.
Yeah, and so let me mention something about that for a second. So that's a really important thing that you brought up. There is such a need for people to go into the risk management space for public sector. And a lot of times we struggle to fill those jobs because those jobs aren't usually found on Indeed. Sometimes they are, but the typical places where you would look for a job as an applicant is not where you find government jobs. Education jobs are on a website called EdJoin. So anything for education, school districts, community colleges, regional occupational programs, all of those are going to be on EdJoin. It's a separate site. Sometimes a district will make the effort to put it on a different platform like Indeed, but not always. So just keep that in mind. For folks out there looking for a job, look at EdJoin, and that's national, by the way. The other one is, I believe it's governmentjobs.com for city and county. And a lot of folks just don't know. So we have public entities that are flying positions for risk management or workers' comp technicians. They're looking for people and they can't find applicants because unless you know about those sites, you don't know that those jobs are there. So if I can just put something out there for the job seekers, please look at those sites. Don't think that like LinkedIn and Indeed are the end all be all. There are jobs, you just have to know which sites to look at.
Thank you. We'll make sure and put that in the show notes for folks.
Yeah, Yvonne is really good about that. We'll definitely make that because that's so key. That's so important. Oftentimes, no one's looking at it, and that's why they can't find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been in the industry for a while, Sandy. How did you navigate your way into our wonderful industry?
Like many people, I was young and I needed a job, and a workers' comp carrier was hiring, and I knew nothing about workers' comp. But the beauty of our industry is that we are really great at saying, that's okay, we'll train you. And so my very first entry into this world was through state compensation insurance funds. So California has a state fund. And I worked there for about 8 years. They took me on as an adjuster. And they just said, if you have a degree, that's it. You just have a degree, we'll train you on everything else. And they did. And they had a fantastic training program. This is back in the very early 2000s. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed claims. You get to learn a lot of information when it comes to medicine and treatment. You also learn a lot of legal things. So it's something to learn all the time. And if you're a lifetime student, then I think workers' comp is a great, great industry for you because you are always learning. But that was how my first entry into the field is. They took me on and they trained me. And I'm very happy to see that there's still a lot of TPAs and carriers that follow that model of, you're right out of college, you don't have a background in insurance or workers' comp, that's okay. Everything is teachable. If you just give us a chance, we can show you what you can really see and do in this industry.
Awesome. That's great.
How, over a time, how have you decided, right, to change your format, to go in this direction, to go in the other? Like, give me a little bit of how have you made some of those decisions that have really changed the course of what we're learning from you?
I think it's important to remember creativity is the default for everyone. And I think we forget that sometimes. Creativity is if you look at kids playing, they're making up their own games, they're making up songs, they make stuff up, and there's not an effort for them. That just comes naturally. But as we get older and then we get into the professional world, you're taught that kind of level of creativity isn't always valued in the same way. And you're taught that it's safer to acclimate to your environment. You're taught that it's safer to make sure that you're blending in. So you're training yourself to not use those muscles anymore. But I think that really is the default for everyone. And so I try to approach it from that way, from that lens of trying to be a little bit fun and think of what you would do like when you were a kid and the jokes that you would make and the stories you would tell. And I feel like that's what resonates with a lot of people. I do think that is our default. The example that I give all the time is there is some study, and I can't think of where I saw it, but if you look at the graph over time of like left-handed people, you see this sharp increase, right? Like from the early 1900s to now. And it's not that there are more left-handed people, it's that there was a time when in school, if you were using your left hand, you were corrected to use only your right hand.
That's right.
But left-handedness was your default. You were just trained to use your right hand. And I feel like it's the same thing with creativity. Everybody is creative, but you're trained to lean toward more logic and not use creativity in the same way. And so because of that, it's just a muscle that you stop using. But when I approach education and I try to use those muscles, what I'm hoping to do is connect with people who miss that. I think we miss that in our lives, and we have that in places where we feel safe. with our family and our friends, when we're having fun or we're making jokes and we're being a little bit silly. And even within the workplace, if you think like in your office or your coworkers, where you have like these inside jokes or you have a funny claim story or something that has happened that was a good teaching tool, we already do that internally. But for some reason, we're just not putting that externally into the world to teach other people. And so that really is the goal with everything that I create, is how can I use that to connect with others?
I love that. I have a feeling we're going to be using that. I put it down. Creativity is the default for everyone. I think there is magic there. Those are incredible words, because you're absolutely right. Who doesn't love to have fun? Who doesn't love to laugh and to, learn in an environment in a way that's welcoming, open, and you can jump right in, right? That welcomes all of that. Love that. Just love that. Absolutely.
So I wanted to take an opportunity to sort of dissect one of your recent videos, Sandy, to sort of give an example to people that haven't maybe come across your channel yet. But like, I'm looking at one here, I think it's from about 3 weeks ago. And you're talking about the Bon Jovi unit of measurement. I love this because Bon Jovi, of course, is, that was my time. So what you talk about here is that means if you're talking about a Bon Jovi unit of measurement, that means you're halfway there.
Yes.
Right? Such a great analogy. And so you took that and broke down how to explain why that's important in workers' comp claims when it comes to excess reporting. So that's just one example of how you take, an iconic song that almost even people that didn't grow up in that time listening to that song know that song. So great way to take a catchy tune and apply it to what we're talking about in workers' compensation. And there are dozens of examples. I know every time I come across one of your new videos, I stop whatever I'm doing and just lean in, because it's always educational, it's always fun, and it always brings a smile to my face. So thank you so much for breaking it down and bringing those videos to us. You have been up to a lot of other things though too. So there are a few things happening. I don't think they've happened yet. I think they're happening soon. You've got a book coming out.
I do. So I have partnered with Angel Guerra. She's amazing. And we have a book coming out on May 18th. It's going to be available on Amazon. It's called Riskfetti. Think of confetti, but like risk.
Yeah.
Riskfetti, risk management for the rest of us. And the idea for this book, we've been working on it for about a year, really came out of just like what I mentioned earlier. Risk management isn't something that is really presented in a way that is approachable. And I want to be careful when I say that, because I think there is education out there. Don't get me wrong. You have amazing organizations like the Alliance and or the Alliance for Risk and Insurance and the institutes who put out curriculum for risk management and different types of insurance topics. But if you are starting from the ground floor, if you are coming in right off the street and you don't have a background in insurance at all, that curriculum is really, really, really hard to get through. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the challenge, is you have a lot of people who fall into this category of being responsible for risk management for small to mid-sized organizations, which is the bulk of our businesses, by the way, right? We're not all like Disney and Clorox and Coca-Cola. Most of the businesses in the US are small to mid-size, and they very rarely have a risk manager. You usually have somebody who has a hat on top of their main hat, and they have all the responsibility of risk management, but they have to learn this whole other side of the business on top of their main role. And where do they go for that today? They can go to the institutes, they can go and do those things, but it's so hard. And because there's also a price component to that, people feel the pressure where like, I just need to like get through and pass these tests. But then when I've talked to a lot of people who've gotten their designations, and they fall into one of two camps. They absolutely love the curriculum. They get a lot of value in it. Most of those folks already had some insurance experience, and they're able to really make sense of it. For the people who were at the ground floor and just needed to plow through it, they just plowed through it. And they're like, I don't know, I crammed for like months and I made sure I took my test and like I'm done. But most of what they learned was more on the job. And learning the job on the job is a rough learning curve in risk management. There are a lot of bad things that can happen when you're just learning as you go. And in most organizations, it's just you. Yeah. It's just you. Very few people have like a department. Again, if you're a hat on top of a hat, it's not even a department of one. It's like it's a department of none, right? Because you have to take on that responsibility on top of your main role. So the goal of the book was to reach those folks, to make sure, like, what can we do to explain this in a very general sense? What are you going to see for your day-to-day? Just general liability, workers' comp, property. We go over the different lines of coverage, the different types of things they'll see, emergency management, all these things that risk managers are responsible for, and what you can expect to see at your role. And it's really speaking to those folks who are small to mid-size. It's not gonna resonate with somebody who is at, again, this massive global company that has billions and billions in revenue. It's gonna speak to, like, let's say you got 20 million in revenue and 1,000 employees. You're lucky if you have a risk manager, but that's still a sizable organization, right? So that's the goal, is to make, we have some stories in there. We try to, have fun with it, make it approachable. I think what we describe it as in our preface is, it's not the War and Peace version of risk management. It's the Go Dog Go version of risk management. Except at the end, instead of like all the dogs having a party in the tree, they're learning more about insurance procurement. Like, that's ultimately the goal, so that it feels approachable for people. So we're really excited. That's going to come out on May 18th. So we're trying to put the word out there. Anybody who wants to get a handle on this new role that they have, or the risk management responsibility, but maybe feels a little bit intimidated about the current coursework that's available, our goal is to kind of warm you up a little bit to build that confidence, so that you can then go down that route of maybe getting designations.
That's awesome. Thank you so much to you and Angel for putting that together. That's amazing. Kudos to both of you.
It really is. Talk about changing our industry, right? Because that's been needed for a really long time. Like you said, a lot of folks struggle, especially those at the very beginning. How do I get through all of this? So what an incredible offering, right? For folks to really feel comfortable, right? With getting started. Love it.
Yeah.
So Sandy, one of the things that you mentioned is that, this issue of this industry, our industry, insurance and workers' compensation, not doing such a great job managing our image. You talk about how that leads to breakdown in trust with both injured workers and employers. And that is something we talk about a lot in just about any session that we do. If it has anything to do with the management of claims, we talk about that. You have to manage that breakdown of trust. You don't want that to happen. So talk to us a little bit about how you think that we could go further, because as I mentioned when we started, this is something that's been on my mind pretty much since I started in this industry. And that was a really long time ago. Because I, like you just described, I had to learn everything the hard way. And honestly, the way that I learned most of what I know is because once my first company that I worked for in this space learned that I could read and that I could write, I got tasked with responding to requests for proposal for my company. And it was a subsidiary of the Travelers. And so for almost 3 years, I was relegated to that task of having to gather up these questionnaires, work with our team, our management team, and respond to these RFPs. And that's how I learned the bulk of what I know, is by reading through and composing these answers to these RFPs. And then, of course, asking a lot of questions for all the stuff that didn't make sense to me in between. But what do you feel like we could be and should be doing over and above what we're doing today to help kind of close those gaps?
I think a big challenge is that, one, organizations, and this is across the board, organizations don't do a good job training their managers. They just don't. Few organizations have a good management training program. And the reason that's important is because when you have somebody who's injured at work, they go through the workers' comp system, and then usually who's in charge of workers' comp at the organization, it might be somebody in HR, for example. But HR doesn't have the relationship with that employee. The manager does. The manager knows that employee. That's usually who they're going to reach out to. So if you're hurt at work and you tell your manager and you're just like, okay, yeah, report the claim. And now you have questions. You have questions and you ask your manager, like, I don't know, talk to HR. What does that feel like? You're sent to HR to handle it. And how do most people, and I know this isn't fair, but how do most people feel about HR? So for a lot of people who are then routed to HR, it feels like, well, is this punitive? Am I in trouble? This is a person I don't know. Am I going to say something that's going to get me in trouble? And so that level of trust may not be there. And they just feel like kind of passed on from that manager. And managers don't have to be an expert in workers' comp, but they should know the basics. And again, we're like 100 years in. Do you know how many people still struggle with the idea of a no-fault system after 100 years?
Yeah.
And I think, right, why is that an issue? So I think we don't talk until a claim is filed. That's the first issue, is you need to make sure that managers are trained. Managers are trained, they should understand the basics. They should understand what benefits the employee might be entitled to. They should understand that there will be no retaliation. It is a no-fault system. It doesn't matter that the employee was on their phone and they weren't paying attention to where they were going and they fell down, right? So those are the things you need to train your managers for, because they're the direct line to the employee. That's the first opportunity. The second one is how we engage with employees. Claims is a very busy world. I get it. But right now, we do what we have to do. We don't necessarily do things for what's best for the employee. And there's going to be a lot of organizations that say they do. And the gap from that is workers' comp has statutory benefits. So we provide all of the statutory benefits, but someone's life is impacted in ways outside of those statutory benefits. And the response for a long time was, well, but that's not our job. We provide the statutory benefits. We're not going to help them in all these other things and all the ways it impacts their life. That's not their job. That's not our job. So let's think about what we can do for employees when they're injured. You have somebody who has an injury and they have work restrictions, and then the employer says, okay, here's how we're going to accommodate those work restrictions. We don't have a conversation with them about how they can perform in their home, outside of work, how they're going to do things like put on their shoes or do laundry, or all these things that they still have to do. And people struggle with that. On social media, and being someone who makes a lot of content, it means I'm chronically online, so I see all this stuff. On social media, there are a ton of amazing occupational and physical therapists that do those videos all the time. They're like, oh, do you need to lift a laundry basket? Here's how to do that. Here's how to do this exercise modified. Here's how you can put on your socks if you can't bend at the waist using household items. I would love to see a TPA or a carrier put a series of videos like that up on their website for injured workers and say, hey, are you struggling to do these things at home? Here's how you can do them. Or just at least link to the creators who are already creating that content. Are you having trouble gripping or grasping? Here's some household items that you can use to help you with that. That speaks to really caring about the outcome for the employee. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't cost you anything. Right. This is information that already exists. There are already people putting this stuff out there for free. And you can say, hey, are you struggling with these functions at home? Here's how you can do that. There's organizations like Kind Souls. I'm a huge, huge fan of Kind Souls. They're an amazing organization. It is a warm line support for people who are struggling with things that are outside of workers' comp, but they're still impacted by their disability. I don't know why every carrier and TPA doesn't have that as a standard practice in training their adjusters. Hey, make sure you give employees this resource. It's not a statutory benefit, but why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah, I mentioned just about any session that I'm in, again, when it's talking about claims handling, I always mention Kind Souls. And by the way, we're doing a webinar in May, and we're not charging any money for the webinar, but we are asking for a suggested donation to Kind Souls Foundation. So,
oh, that's great. I'll make sure to put some videos promoting that. That'd be amazing. But they're an amazing organization, and
absolutely,
again, it speaks to there's opportunity to do more for employees. And I don't think we do that. I think we do what we have to do. And then we get the rap that we get. And we're like, oh, why do we have such a bad rap in the world?
Why do people talk so negatively? Yeah, well, a couple of things I want to kind of track back to. So, and this could be, we've heard of confirmation bias, or like when you notice something and then you notice that thing more and more and more, that one way to refer to that is confirmation bias. So I think I have that going on right now. But one of the things, and I know that you're real big on this too, Sandy, talking about empathy. So I forget exactly what got me going in that direction this year, but I started thinking about empathy a lot. And I actually remember now, it was something that happened to me personally earlier in the year on a call. And I started kind of digging into, we talk about empathy all the time, but sort of to your point, we're not doing a really good job of training managers. Well, in this industry, we also talk about how important empathy is, but do we really talk about how you get it and where it comes from? No, we do not. So this is where I'm going to track back to this whole, I think it's confirmation bias, because I'm paying attention to it more. But if we're not training the managers how to have capacity And we're to build capacity so that when one of their employees gets hurt on the job, so that they have the understanding and the capacity to stop, take a moment. It doesn't take that long. Like you said, they don't have to understand everything there is to know about workers' compensation. But the question I have is kind of like the question that you said, like, why aren't we doing that more? It really doesn't take that much time. You're training a manager on the business and all the ins and outs of the business. How much more time is it going to take to say, hey, it's really important to help us, however way they want to put that, message out there. But we need to, have you understand how critically important it is that if you do have an injury with one of your employees, here are the steps that we should take so that everything works out the way that it should, or in a more positive direction.
I think it's not just empathy. I think it's communication, because you can't show empathy if you don't know how to communicate. And a big part of that is listening and how you express intent. And communication is one of those things where it is on every job description. I can put my hand into the internet and pull out any job posting. I can guarantee you it's going to have communication skills as a requirement. Where are people learning that? It is something we cross our fingers and hope they have, because they say they have it, but it's not something that people are ever really formally trained on what effective communication is. And then we see that in terms of poor claims outcomes or how people talk to their employees and things that people don't even realize. When I do training for managers, I talk about, be mindful of how you talk about employees who are off work comp. Because you'll make jokes about like, oh, you're out for a month, must be nice to have a vacation, ha ha ha. And you're kidding, but how does that feel for the employee?
Yeah.
And a lot of them genuinely just don't make that connection. They think like, oh, I didn't think that was a big deal. We joke around all the time. I didn't think that was going to bother them. But again, that speaks to communication skills. And we can't blame them for doing it poorly if we don't actually train our managers. And I think that's the issue, is we hope somebody came to us with communication skills and then we penalize them when they don't. But where do we expect them to learn? And very few organizations are out there actively training on what good communication is, especially for their frontline managers.
I agree. And I'm going to go back, and I think I failed to connect the dots as to why I was talking about capacity, but I started talking about empathy, but I think it's still a capacity issue. Yes, we need to train folks how to be good communicators, but we also we're just doing a terrible job of explaining the importance of self-leadership, right? In order to have good capacity to communicate, you have to manage yourself in a way that you have the capacity to communicate well, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with empathy. If you don't take the steps to refuel yourself, eat good food, hydrate yourself, get up and take a few breaths and walk around. If you don't do all these things, your capacity for everything is going to diminish. You're not going to be good at many things. So I've gone on a lot more than I should have about that, but I do think it's a capacity issue. And we suck at talking about how important it is, especially in the industry that we're in. And where else, obviously health workers need to have capacity, right? To do what they do because they're on demand all the time. There's a lot of professions where capacity is important, but I think in our industry, in workers' compensation, particularly for a person that's at the claims desk, they're talking to folks. A lot of times the conversations aren't great conversations, right? You could say that they might be draining. So how do you keep yourself at the same level from the first call of the day as it is at the end of the day? That is the part that we don't talk about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really unfortunate, because you're right. Nobody tells you when you go into the industry what that feels like or how to manage it.
Yeah.
We only do something after someone else is drowning. Then it's like, oh, now we have to address this issue. But it is very reactive, and it's very unfortunate that that's the way that is. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that's a big problem within our industry.
Thanks. Okay, Ralph, back to you, and we're going to have to wrap it up soon.
I just wanted to, Sandy, you have really helped me today, I think, to connect some dots that seemingly were so easy, but your example of, if you're struggling tying your shoes, right? There are tools out there. Why aren't we using them? I almost want to equate, we need badly communication skills. Are there folks out there who may be teaching us away from work how to be a better communicator? Are we missing the boat there as well? Are there tools? Because you guys are both absolutely right. We need to learn how to communicate better, period, the end, right? So how do we get there? If our own folks aren't doing it, are there sources out there that we can, go plug and learn from? I mean, I think you've opened up an ocean for me here.
There are a ton of, different companies that do focus on that training. I think a lot of the resistance to it is cost related. Is you have companies who are like, they don't want to invest in the cost or they don't see the ROI. Right. But if you've heard of Pollock Peace Building, they have a phenomenal program. There's a book. The book is cheap. If you can buy your managers the book, I think it's called Peaceful Leadership. But they have different organizations out there that can train folks who are experts in that field. And I would just, if that's the one thing that I can impress upon any organization that's listening, is the ROI is there. Your managers need the training. Everybody needs the training. I would love to see more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yvonne, you've been talking about this forever because you have always been such an advocate for education, right? And teaching our own folks internally how to be better, how to manage yourself better, and then how to do the job better. This is another layer and maybe a step up on that, right? But it fits so nicely in that ballpark. So I've got 2 pages of notes. I have been learning from you today because it's helping me like, okay, I see the tie. I see the benefit, right? And you're right, at the end of the day, from a business perspective, there may be some folks who are measuring the dollars who aren't seeing the ROI, but then look at your claims and look what's happening. And you may find out that if we had spent a little time and energy, those results may be better as a result of that effort. So it really is. It's an interesting, how we have allowed ourselves to get this far, this long, right?
Yeah, and it speaks to, again, our image problem as an industry. Right. Is because we are not investing in those things. Like to Yvonne's point about self-leadership, we're not investing in that education and that training. And we're seeing that in the claims outcomes. Mm-hmm. So if we want to change our image, there are some things that we need to start focusing on that I think we have not focused on for a long time because the old thinking was probably, well, as an employer, that's not my job. That's not my job to tell somebody how to, how to promote self-leadership or how to manage stress, how to de-escalate and communicate better. That's not my job. It's like, okay, but they're your employees. So if you want that ROI, you're going to get what you're putting in. Yeah. So what are you putting in as an employer?
Absolutely. So I'm so happy, Sandy, that you joined the Elevate Education Committee. So I know that you're bringing all of your knowledge and your creativity to that committee. And that is just something that I always look forward to every year to see how those things shake out. And so happy that you're part of that committee. Thank you for joining. And so the last little example I want to give. So folks, if you haven't heard my message yet and the message of today, you have to go out and connect with Sandy on social media. I could take a whole hour and list like maybe a little snippet, a little smidge of all the stuff that she does. But I'm looking at another one that you did, I think about a month ago, and you are explaining risk management to the backdrop of The Sopranos and explaining how that correlates. So another fun way to talk about how our complicated industry can actually be creative and fun.
Yes, it's Sopranos and it's Bon Jovi. There's something for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. It really is. All right, Sandy. How do you relax? What do you do for fun? I mean, I have learned so much about you during this interview, and you really are. You're that creative type who really loves to have fun within the work environment. But what do you do to relax? What do you do to get away from it a little bit? What do you like to do, to unplug, if you will?
So, okay, you're gonna laugh at this. I love birds. And I don't know when this happened. It was something in my 40s. It was like gradual. And now I'm like when I retire, I'm going to be a birder. I'm going to be one of those people who travels and does the bird watching. And I don't know where it came from. It's not like I always loved birds growing up. It was just this weird thing that started to happen. And I have in my backyard, my husband refers to it as Birdtown, USA, and I'm the mayor of Birdtown. So I have all of my feeders. I have an app on my phone that connects to a camera that's connected to the bird feeder. So I get alerts when different birds come to. So it's gotten a little bit ridiculous, but it's kind of fun. But that is my, I have a lot of fun maintaining Birdtown and hopefully not getting my neighbors too upset because birds make a mess. And then they'll leave the food or the peanut shells in other people's yards. And so I have to, my diplomatic responsibilities as Mayor Birdtown mean I have to make sure that I'm not making a mess for my neighbors. But I love birds. And my current project right now that I'm working on is I'm trying to befriend the crows in my neighborhood. So crows are really, really smart. They remember faces. And if you work hard enough, you build that trust where like they can come to you, like they'll eat out of your hand. So I am working on that. On the weekends, I'm out there. They'll come around 10 a.m. There's a schedule. They call and then they come out and I bring the food. So it's, yeah, that's something I love to do. It probably wasn't something you were expecting. Most people probably say things like travel, do yoga. Yeah. Sandy's out there giving peanuts to crows.
Oh gosh. Well, I love it. I like watching birds too. You know, they say that birds and the sounds of birds in nature is one of the most natural things you can do and listen to lower your stress. To lower your stress levels.
I love it. Yeah, I love to listen to them.
So there's that, and I'm constantly going to Instagram pages that have a little bird cam set up, and they have like the different. I love those. So if you have are you posting your pictures anywhere that you get to take off your little camera?
Not yet. It's something that my husband and I were talking about that the other day because I'm now getting, it escalates as you get this whole bird thing escalates. We are thinking of setting up a whole like a trail cam with a regular live feed of the backyard. So if I ever get to that level, I'll let you know.
Well, keep me posted. I love it. I absolutely love it. And FYI, I think I've told you this. So I'm living in Panama part of the time, half the year. It's a great place to come bird watching. One of the best places in the world. Well, listen, Sandy, as you can tell, we could have gone on talking. I love talking to you. I'm so happy that we connected. I love what you're doing. Please keep doing it. Do more of it. We're going to have another conversation at some point to kind of go through some of the creative processes that you do for building your videos, because they're so fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for providing this platform just in general, because I do think it's so needed. Like we mentioned earlier, the education is needed, and this really makes it accessible for everybody. So thank you for that work you do.
You are welcome. And so we always like to end each episode by saying, until we see you next time, hasta luego.
Hasta luego.